A very good morning, students. This is your history video for the chapter The Nationalism in India. Students, as we were continuing the heading rebellion in the countryside, that how the differing stands within the movement, the non-cooperation Khilafat movement, that how the people are different in their views, that why they had taken part in the movement. So we have talked about the city area, town area, then here we are talking about the village area, that how the people have taken the idea of the non-cooperation Khilafat movement and how they had taken part. What is the meaning of Khilafat and non-cooperation movement for them? We are going to discuss in this chapter. Students, so here we are taking about the example that in Awadh, the peasants were led by Baba Ramchandra. Student, that how the people follow the idea of the Khilafat movement and the non-cooperation movement. So we are taking that in the rural area in the state of Awadh, the small farmers come together under the supervision of Baba Ramchandra, who was a sannyasi, and earlier he has been to the Fiji and he went there as an indentured labor. The movement here was against talukdars. Underline that talukdars. It means in Awadh, the small peasant and farmers were so much exploited by the landlords. In Awadh, the landlords were known the name of talukdars and who demanded from peasant exorbitantly high rents and a variety of other seizes. Peasant had to do begar, underline the term begar, that now in Awadh, the small farmer had to do the work of begar and work at landlord's farms without any payment. So they were doing their work in the state Awadh, and these landlords were not giving them any type of wages. So it was purely exploitation, the exploitation of farmers, small farmers and peasants in Awadh. Now for them as a tenants, they had no security of tenure, being regularly evicted, so they could acquire no right over the leased land. Now the peasant that they could acquire no right over the leased land. The peasant movement demanded reduction of revenue. Underline that in Awadh, the peasant of the farmers, small farmers of Awadh, had demanded the reduction of their revenue, abolition of begar, and the social boycott of oppressive landlords. So for them, the sense and the meaning of non-cooperation Khilafat movement, that they will get rid of all the exploitation by giving the higher taxes and then have abolition of begar and social boycott of oppressive landlords. It is the meaning for these peasants of Awadh with the non-cooperation Khilafat movement. In many places, Nai, Dhobi, then bandhavs were organized by panchayats to deprive landlords of the service of even barbers and washermen. In June 1920, the Jawaharlal Nehru began going around the villages in Awadh, talking to the villagers and trying to understand their grievances. By October, the Awadh Kisan Sabha was set up. Underline. By October, the Awadh Kisan Sabha was set up, headed by Jawaharlal Nehru. Who headed the Awadh Kisan Sabha? Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Baba Ramchandra and a few others. Okay, these were the people who headed the Kisan Awadh Sabha in Awadh, that Jawaharlal, and it was headed by Jawaharlal Nehru, Baba Ramchandra and few others people of Awadh. Within a month, over 300 branches had been set up in the villages around the region. So when the non-cooperation movement began the following year, the effort of the Congress was to integrate the Awadh peasant struggle into the wider struggle. The peasant movement, however, developed in forms that the Congress leadership was unhappy with. As the movement spread in 1921, the houses of talukdars and merchants were attacked. Now you can see that again the people had taken the idea of non-violence in a very wrong way. That again the peasants and the farmers had taken the step towards their fulfilling their demands as a violent way. That's why so many houses of talukdars, merchants were attacked. Bazaars were looted and grain holders were taken over. In many places, local leaders told peasants that Gandhiji had decided that no taxes were to be paid and land was to be redistributed among the poor. So the name of Mahatma Gandhiji was being invoked to sanction all action of and aspiration. So in this way that in the countryside, that's why the heading was rebellion in the countryside. So they had taken the idea into you can say non-violent way and violent way. That's why the peasant had attacked the talukdars houses and their bazars were looted. So it was not the very spirit of the non-cooperation and khilafat movement, as it was purely a non-violent way of doing agitation and fulfilling their demands. Now, the tribal people. We are studying the rebellion in the countryside under the support of non-cooperation and Khilafat movement. Tribal peasant. Now we are talking, first we have talked about the Awadh peasant under the supervision of Baba Ramchandra. Now we are talking about the tribal community. The tribal peasant interpreted the message of Mahatma Gandhiji and the idea of Swaraj in yet another way. Now the tribal people also had taken the idea of Mahatma Gandhiji in the other way. In the Goodan Hills of Andhra Pradesh, underlined, for instance, a militant guerrilla movement spread in the early 1920, not a form of struggle that the Congress could approve. Here, as in the other forest region, the colonial government had closed large forest area, preventing people from entering the forest to graze their cattle. Now you can see that in the Andhra Pradesh, in the Goodan Hills, that guerrilla militant has been found by these tribal people, as they were prevented by the British people under the colonial rule that they cannot come here, they cannot graze their cattle and they cannot take any fuel wood and fruits from the forest. This enraged the hill people. Not only were their livelihoods affected, but they felt that their traditional rights were being denied. When the government began forcing them to contribute baga for road building, the hill people revolted. The person who came to lead them was an interesting figure, Alluri Sitaram Raju. He was a tribal man, claimed that he had a variety of special powers. He could make correct astrological prediction and heal people, and he could survive even bullet shots. So, captivated by Raju, the rebels proclaimed that he was an incarnation of God. The tribal people used to believe that Alluri Sitaram Raju was the messenger of God, and said that Raju talked about the greatness of Mahatma Gandhiji. He said he was inspired by the non-cooperation movement and persuaded people to wear khadi and give up drinking. But at the same time, he asserted that India could be liberated only by the use of force. Underline, it is again the destructive idea by the Alluri Sitaram Raju that not non-violent, that the Goodan rebels attacked police station. Then again, it was a non-violent, that the violent activity was done there, attempted to kill British official and carried on guerrilla warfare for achieving Swaraj. And it was not the very spirit of any movement. Although we are talking about here mainly the Swaraj movement or the non-cooperation Khilafat movement, but in any movement which was led by the Mahatma Gandhiji, full of that it should be far away from any violence. Raju was captured and executed in 1924 and over time became a folk hero. And among these tribal people, the Alluri Sitaram Raju were remembered as a folk hero. Now, next is Swaraj in the plantation. As you know, Swaraj means independence. Now, that how in the plantation worker or the plantation worker in the British fields, how they were exploited, how they have taken the idea of the non-cooperation Khilafat movement. Workers too had their own understanding of Mahatma Gandhiji and notion of Swaraj. For plantation workers in Assam, you have to quote the area that when we are talking about the plantation worker, we are talking about the Assam. If we are talking about the small peasant and farmer, we are talking about the peasants of Awadh. If we are talking about the Aluri Sitaram Raju, so we are talking about the tribal people. Okay. Now in Assam, freedom means the right to move freely in and out of the confined space in which they were enclosed, and it means retaining a link with the village from which they had come. Under the Inland Emigration Act of 1859, plantation workers were not permitted to leave the tea garden without permission. So, students, that how they were exploited, that in Assam the plantation workers was not allowed to go to leave the plantation gardens without any permission, and even they were not allowed to do the basic things as drinking water and go for the washroom. And they have implemented, the British had implemented an act which was in that act of 1859, and it was Inland Emigration Act. Under it, they were not allowed to go anywhere from the plantation field. When they heard of the non-cooperation movement, thousands of workers defied the authorities, left the plantation and headed home. They believed that Gandhi Raj was coming and everyone would be given land in their own villages. They, however, never reached their destination. Stranded on the way by a railway and steamer strike, they were caught by the police and brutally beaten up. Although they have become so much agitated and they decided to run away from the plantation area, but ultimately they were caught by the colonial police and they were beaten brutally. Okay, so it was, you can see the beta that how throughout the old area, either we talk about the city area, town area, village area, tribal community, or the plantation workers in Assam, all were have taken the idea of non-cooperation and the Khilafat movement in their own way, and that's why they all lead to the violent way, and it was not the basic idea behind the movement. Okay, now we are continuing that the vision of these movements were not defined by the Congress program. They interpreted the term Swaraj in their own ways, and imagining to be a time when all suffering and troubles would be over. Yet when the tribals chanted Gandhiji's name and raised slogan demanding Swatantra Bharat, okay, Swatantra Bharat slogan was chanted by the tribal community, okay, they were also emotionally relating to an all India agitation. When they acted in the name of Mahatma Gandhi or linked their movement to that of the Congress, they were identifying with a movement which went beyond the limits of their immediate locality. So it is all about that how the people from the different section of the society, they have come together to support the Khilafat and non-cooperation movement in India. Now towards the next very important, or you can say, movement in this chapter, and the movement was known as towards civil disobedience movement. Now in February 1922, Mahatma Gandhi decided to withdraw the non-cooperation movement. When the idea of non-cooperation was withdrawn by Mahatma Gandhi ji in February 1922. Okay, every dates, every facts is important. Okay, which can be asked in a variety of ways. Please underline. If you are watching the video, please underline these. He felt that movement was turning violent in many places and satyagrahis needed to be properly trained before they would be really for mass struggle. Now, within the Congress, some leaders were by now tired of mass struggle and wanted to participate in elections to the provincial council that had been set up by the government of India Act of 1990. Now, up to these satyagraha movement and after the completion and the withdrawal of non-cooperation movement, now most of the Congress leaders were tired up of these movements and they want that there should be the council election should be held. They felt that it was important to oppose British policy within the council, argue for reform, and also demonstrate these council were not truly democratic. C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru formed the Swaraj Party within the Congress to argue for a return to council politics. Who were formed the Swaraj Party? C.R. Das and Motilal Nehru. Okay, but younger leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose pressed for more radical mass agitation and for full independence, complete Swaraj. At the same time, Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose wanted that there should be the mass agitation, okay, and for the full independence of the Indian people. In such a situation of initial debate and dissension, two factors again shaped Indian politics and economic towards the late 1920s. The first was the effect of the worldwide economic depression, and agricultural prices began to fall from 1926 and collapsed after 1930. As the demand for agriculture goods fell and exports declined, peasants found it difficult to sell their harvest and pay their revenue. By 1930, the countryside was in turmoil. Now, 1930 was a year of great economic depression in India. Okay, we are going to explain it in the next video. Good morning, students. Now we are back to continue the civil disobedience movement that we are talking about, that in such a situation internal debate and dissent, two factors again shaped Indian politics toward the late 1920s. The first was the effect of the worldwide economic depression. Agricultural prices began to fall from 1926 and collapsed in 1930. As the demand for agricultural goods fell and export declined, peasants found it difficult to sell their harvest and pay their revenue. By 1930, the countryside was in turmoil. So, against the background of new Tory government in Britain, constituted a statutory commission under Sir John Simon, set up in the response to a nationalist movement. The commission was to look into the functioning of the constitutional system in India and suggest changes. Now that the new way of British government to suppress, to compel the Indian people, that they introduced the Tory government, and with the statutory commission under the Sir John Simon in India. Okay, and under this law, that what they have done, that the commission was to look into the functioning of the constitutional system in India and suggest changes. Okay, they set up a constitutional system in India under the statutory commission, and the problem of this commission was that the member of this commission was not a single Indian involved. They all were British. So again, that with the help of new act as the Land Immigration Act, as the Rowlatt Act, and now the next constitutional way, that statutory commission they have introduced in India to compel once again the Indian people, so that they cannot continue the spirit of nationalism. Now, when the Simon Commission arrived in India in 1928, when did the Simon Commission arrive in India? 1928. It was greeted with the slogan, "Go back, Simon." Who told this, "Go back, Simon"? All the Indian people, all parties, including the Congress and the Muslim League, participated in the demonstration in an effort to win them, and the Viceroy Lord Irwin announced in October 1921 a wedge offer of Dominion states for India in an unspecified future, and a roundtable conference to discuss a future constitution. This did not satisfy the Congress leader. The radicals within the Congress, led by Jawaharlal Nehru and Subhash Chandra Bose, became more assertive. The liberals and the moderates, who were proposing a constitutional system within the framework of British dominion, gradually lost their influences. In December 1929, under the presidency of Jawaharlal Nehru, the Lahore Congress formalized the demand of Purna Swaraj, or full independence for India. It was declared that 26 January 1930 would be celebrated as the Independence Day, when people were to take a pledge to struggle for complete independence. 26 January 1930. But the celebration attracted very little attention. So Mahatma Gandhi had to find a way to relate this abstract idea of freedom to more concrete issue of everyday life. So again, when the Mahatma Gandhi ji started the idea of civil disobedience movement in a recent step, it was not welcomed by the all politicians or the members of Congress. So Mahatma Gandhi ji, and then again British people come up with the idea of the statutory commission, so that they can compel, and then they can once again you can say exploit the Indian people, stop the agitation around the country. So now Mahatma Gandhi thought that this idea should be more focused. The people should be educated that how we can enhance the spirit of civil disobedience movement. Now next is the Salt March and the civil disobedience movement. That when we are saying, now we are talking about the Salt March. With the help of Salt March, we continue the spirit of civil disobedience movement in India. Mahatma Gandhi ji found in Salt a powerful symbol that could unite the nation. Now you can see that how visionary man he was, that salt is a thing which is consumed by all the rich, middle and poor people in their food. So on 31st January 1930, he sent a letter to Viceroy Irwin stating 11 demands. Some of these were of general interest, others were specific demands to different classes, from industrialists to peasants. The idea was to make the demands wide-ranging so that all classes within Indian society could identify with them and everyone could be brought together in a united campaign. So Mahatma Gandhi has written a 11 demands letter and forwarded to the Viceroy Irwin, and it was included all the interest and the welfare of all citizens of India. The most inspiring of all was the demand to abolish the salt tax, and among them the most important demand in the 11 demands that the British government has to end that salt tax. Salt was something consumed by rich and poor alike, and it was one of the most essential items of food. Then, the tax on salt and the government monopoly over its production, Mahatma Gandhi declared, revealed the most oppressive face of British rule. Mahatma Gandhi told that if we country people has to give tax on salt, then it is the most adverse thing and most humiliated behavior by the British to the Indians. That's why he has started the Salt March. Mahatma Gandhi's letter was in a way an ultimatum. He said that if the demands were not fulfilled by 11 March, the letter stated the Congress would launch a civil disobedience campaign. Irwin was unwilling to negotiate. Irwin was not ready to fulfill all 11 demands. So Mahatma Gandhi started his famous Salt March, accompanied by 78 of his trusted volunteers. How many volunteers? 78. The march was over 240 miles from Gandhiji's ashram in Sabarmati to the Gujarat coastal town of Dandi. The volunteers walked for 24 days and about 10 miles a day. Thousands came to hear Mahatma Gandhiji wherever he stopped, and he told them what he meant by Swaraj and urged them to peacefully defy the British. On 6th April, reached Dandi and ceremonially violated the law manufacturing salt by the boiling seawater. So on 6th March, Mahatma Gandhi declared that we Indian people will not purchase the British made salt, we will boil the seawater and we produce our country made salt to use in our essential basic food items. So in this way, Mahatma Gandhi ji charged with the idea of civil disobedience movement, and he attached the Salt March again to enhance the spirit of civil disobedience movement. Now, this marked the beginning of civil disobedience movement, which you can say which incident marked the beginning of civil disobedience movement in India. So your answer will be the Salt March. How was this movement different from non-cooperation movement? Now the question arises that, as I told you when I given the lecture in the classroom student, that what was the basic difference between Satyagraha movement and non-cooperation movement. So here we are stating that what is the difference between non-cooperation movement and the civil disobedience movement. People were now asked not only to refuse cooperation. Now under the civil disobedience movement, now the peoples are not only boycotting the things or the British policy and products with the British as they had done in 1921 and 1922, but also to break colonial laws. Under civil disobedience movement, now the Indian agitationists or satyagrahis started to break the colonial laws. It was the basic difference, student. Okay, thousands in different parts of the country broke the salt law, manufactured salt and demonstrated in front of the government salt factories. As the movement spread, foreign cloth was boycotted and liquor shops were picketed. Peasants refused to pay revenue and Chaukidari taxes. Underline the new term, Chaukidari taxes. Village official resigned, and in the many places forest people violated forest law, going into reserved forest to collect wood and graze cattle. So in the civil disobedience movement, the people now not only boycotting the things as earlier in the non-cooperation movement. Here they are breaking the various colonial laws, which included the salt law, which included the Chaukidari taxes, which included the that plantation land immigration act. All laws were just broken by the Indian people under the civil disobedience movement. Now, worried by the development, the colonial government began arresting the Congress leader one by one. This led to violent clashes in many places, as they usually do, student. When Abdul Ghaffar Khan, a devout disciple of Mahatma Gandhi, was arrested in April 1930, angry crowd demonstrated in the streets of Peshawar, facing armored cars and police firing. Many were killed. A month later, when Mahatma Gandhi himself was arrested, industrial workers in Sholapur attacked police posts, municipal buildings, law courts, and railway station. All structures that symbolize British rule. Then again they became violent. A frightened government responded with a policy of brutal repression. Then again, you know that if we are taking the path of violence, then again it will be destructive. So the British also become so brutal repression. Peaceful satyagrahi were attacked. Women and children were beaten. Now underline, women and children were beaten. About that, this figure were people were arrested. 1 lakh people were arrested under the civil disobedience movement. Okay, student. Now, in such a situation, Mahatma Gandhi once again decided to call off the movement and entered into a pact with Irvin on March 1931. When Mahatma Gandhi saw an adverse effect and the violent effect of civil disobedience movement, once again civil disobedience also withdrawn by the Mahatma Gandhi ji, and he had signed a pact with Irvin on March 1931. By this Gandhi-Irvin pact, underline, Gandhi-Irvin pact was signed after the violence of civil disobedience movement. Okay, Gandhi ji consented to participate in a round table conference. The Congress had boycotted the first, okay, round table conference and in London, and the government agreed to release the political prisoner. In December 1931, Gandhiji went to London for the conference, but the negotiations broke down and he returned disappointed. Back in India, he discovered that the government had begun a new cycle of repression. Ghaffar Khan and Jawaharlal Nehru were both in jail, okay, because they were the Congress leader. So British people just kept them behind the bar. The Congress had been declared illegal. British government declared Congress party, okay, as an illegal political party, and a series of measures had been imposed to prevent meeting, demonstration, and boycotts. With the great apprehension, Mahatma Gandhi ji relaunched the civil disobedience movement for over a year, and within a year Mahatma Gandhi ji relaunched the civil disobedience movement. The movement continued, but by 1934 it lost its momentum. Okay, so it is all about the civil disobedience movement, student. We will continue with the another important heading in the next lecture video, that how participants saw the movement. Okay, in this video we have covered how the towards the civil disobedience people had participated in it, and we have talked about that what do we mean by Swaraj in the plantation area. Okay, so it is all about this video. Make notes, underline the important thing in the NCERT, and do your homework regularly. Take care, goodbye.